Bienvenidos and welcome back to Puro Pinche Gol, the place we discuss all things usmnt y la selección mexicana. My name is Adrian. Joining me once again is my co-host, Tocayos, Adrian. Yeah, what's good, man? How are you doing, bro?
I'm just doing, dude. I'm just, I want to say this clearly. I'm happy that Austin FC is eliminated from Leagues Cup. So
Oh,
that's how I would like to start this episode.
Hey, man, that's your local club, bro. You got to support, dog.
Nah, dog. Screw
Not
that.
Austin FC.
You will never see me wearing an Austin FC shirt. Never.
And they got pretty decent shirts. I'm not gonna lie. But all
That
right,
is true.
whatever, man. We'll get into it, man. We'll get into it. Save your comments on Austin FC because I know we'll probably mention them
Will
here.
do.
This episode, we're going to be talking Leagues Cup, kind of giving our overview of what's been happening so far in the group stage in preparation for the round of 32, and really focusing on how the Leagues Cup has exposed MLS teams. We'll definitely, obviously get into that, but, kind of giving some background on the tournament real quick. It's a tournament between the first annual tournament between Liga MX teams and MLS teams. Month-long competition where they pause both Liga MX and MLS. It has group stages that are split up into conferences, East, South, West, North. Then, it goes into your round of 32, then your best of 16, then your quarters, then your semis, then your final. 47 total teams, 29 from the MLS. That's all the MLS teams. It'll be 30 next year when San Diego joins. 18 from Liga MX. That's all the Liga MX teams. And Pachuca and LAFC automatic buys into the round of 32 due to LAFC being the current champions. And I guess Pachuca being the champion when this whole tournament was organized. Financial prizes for this tournament: champion gets $2 million, prize per game $100,000, and a prize per victory $50,000. Kind of the situation here with the Leagues Cup. So a decent payout for these teams, especially for the smaller teams that don't really have the backing of huge investors. In MLS and Liga MX, a lot of those smaller Liga MX teams, granted, a lot have been knocked out at this point. Yeah, man. So I think we kind of want to focus more on kind of MLS, how their performances have been on here. This tournament is being played all in the United States, which should give MLS teams an advantage, right? I mean, if this tournament was to be played in Mexico or half and half, or home and away, I think the percentages would be a lot different as to how these teams have qualified so far, or their results, right? So out of 18 Liga MX teams, 10 have qualified so far. Please take this with an asterisk. Currently, there's games being played, rounding out the group stage. America's down to Columbus 2-1 as we record this, and Chicago and Puebla are tied 0-0. But if a result stand, Chivas can still advance if they beat Sporting. America currently advances even if they lose, I believe. Toluca will most likely win their group. They play Colorado, and Puebla, I think, is down and out, joining Santos, Necaxa, Tijuana, San Luis as being the 5 eliminated teams for Liga MX. So out of the 18 teams Liga MX, 13 will more or less qualify for the round of 32, which is 72%, and MLS will qualify 19 out of their 29 teams, which is 65%. So a better percentage for Liga MX there. What does this say about MLS, man? I mean, you've had the opportunity to go watch Austin FC twice, I believe. Their 2 games for Leagues Cup. Obviously, that's just watching one team, but you and I have been watching on TV, Leagues Cup constantly, right? So, why don't you kind of give us your thoughts on first? Let us know what your thoughts were to Austin FC. How did they? What occurred there, because they played 2 of the worst teams, in Mazapan and Juarez, and one of the reporters went viral for kind of talking a lot of crap, and they were rejoicing that they got Mazatlan in their group, but what we saw from Austin, we've seen from a lot of MLS teams, as common denominator, right? I mean, what can you attribute?
No, I totally agree to what you're saying. I think Austin FC is a great example of what the average MLS team is doing right now, or how they're getting exposed on Leagues Cup. And I do have to say that when I realized that Mazatlan was playing against Austin FC, and then Bravos was also on the group, I never thought Austin FC was gonna completely just take away the group, right? I never thought they were gonna win both matches and just walk through the group stage and move on into the best 32. But I didn't expect Mazatlan and Juarez to destroy, steamroll the way they did Austin FC. I went to both matches. I went to the one Austin FC against Mazatlan and against Bravos, and I think this is something that you have. I mean, if you take a step back and you look at all the matches throughout Leagues Cup, and especially the ones between MLS teams against Mexican teams, you can see that the common denominator is the MLS teams are constantly on the offensive. And I understand that some teams, some MLS teams have said, "Hey, we're gonna play this with subs because Leagues Cup doesn't really matter too much to us." Point case being St. Louis, and I think also maybe Austin FC, although they're not necessarily in a good spot in their conference, anyways. But nonetheless, they all kept on doing or playing the same strategy, which is just let's see who can make more goals, right? That's essentially the status quo for every single MLS match. Let's see who can best the other team by scoring the most goals possible. And that's what happened on both matches with Austin FC. On the first half, you will see Austin FC on the offensive, pounding Mazatlan, pounding Bravos, barely letting them breathe and get out of their side of the pitch. But as soon as the first half was over, as soon as the clock hit 60 minutes, you will see a drop in pressure, a drop in a drop in performance from Austin FC, where Mazatlan and Bravos will take advantage of it. And I think they both realized that they just have to withstand 60 minutes of nonstop pressure and forward strategy from Austin FC. And after that, I wouldn't say it was a race in the park, but it was a couple of quick breaks, a couple of quick feed passes, and they were 3-1 against Austin FC, and there was no response by Austin FC whatsoever. Like there was you never felt Austin FC was close to tying the match or even making a comeback. And I don't really know if it was because the players just realized that what, screw this, we're not shooting to win this tournament, or if it's just a matter of Liga MX teams have more balanced teams on the long run, I guess on 90 minutes, it pays off having better defenders and goalkeepers than the ones you will see in MLS. So I mean that's something that happened to Austin FC on both matches. And look, I think I've been very vocal that I'm not an Austin FC fan, and I wasn't rooting for them at all. I actually laugh badly because losing against Mazatlan and against Bravos, it's embarrassing, dude. I mean, what can I tell you? It's one of the worst teams in Liga MX. Mazatlan is one of those teams that last season they were like dead last, and they had like a run of 10 games without making any points, like not even tying, right?
Yeah.
And then for them to show up here and win against you, with you're playing as a local with your crowd, and just coming here and essentially just humiliating you. I think it's humiliating. So I don't know. It was to me, it was interesting to see the MLS teams against Liga MX. I got surprised by Mazatlan and Bravos. I wasn't expecting that much from Austin FC. But when you look at all the matches, for example, I was also surprised that Minnesota, I think it was Minnesota against Puebla, they destroyed Puebla, dude. Like, yeah, 4-0. And then I think New England Revolution destroyed San Luis, if I'm not mistaken. Like those matches, I thought they were gonna be closer. I thought they were gonna be tighter, meaning that I felt that those teams were at the same level whenever they showed up to this match. But I guess they aren't.
You brought up a lot of points that I really want to touch on. Definitely, you mentioned MLS. It's lacks defense. It's more who's going to score more goals, right? In MLS, that's how you win games in MLS. And when it works, we saw it worked like crazy. Like you said, New England beat San Luis 5-1. Philadelphia beat Querétaro 5-1. Minnesota beat Puebla 4-0. FC Dallas beat Necaxa 3-0. Right? So I mean, Cincinnati beat Guadalajara 3-1. When it works, right? I mean,
Hmm.
when you're not challenging crazy hard opposition that challenges your defense. And when you play with your starters and they have the ability to last 90 minutes, I could see it working for MLS teams. But
Yeah.
MLS teams don't have the capacity, the luxury to, like you said, with Austin FC, to play most of their reserves or bench. Right, the depth is simply not there. The depth in
Yeah.
MLS pales in comparison to even the small teams of depth in in Liga MX. I'd say the smaller teams in Liga MX, the bench of those teams are better than the bench of even the best teams in MLS. Um, but then you have teams like those that played against Austin, Bravos, Mazapan, small market teams with very small, finances, small resources.
Hmm.
Also, Necaxa, Querétaro. Well, Querétaro is a decent market, but they don't have the best finances. These small
No.
market
Yeah.
teams with smaller finances. Who maybe are taking this tournament seriously to gain that money, right? To gain that, and
Hmm.
but they also they have the finances, like you said, more evenly spread out. You look at MLS teams. Intermiami is a perfect example. Two or three crazy stars making crazy amount of money thanks to that rule where they could have a designated player, right? Three designated players,
Hmm.
and then they lack in defense. That's pretty much the summary of all MLS teams. They spend two or three spots, a lot of money on attacking players because who wants to watch a defender, right? They know that MLS scores goals, so they want to sign attacking players.
They want to
It's
show. Yeah.
it's more attractive to the American crowd, right? That are used to having crazy scores in basketball, football, where it's nothing
Hmm.
but nonstop scoring. They sign with their designated player spots attackers. So you have a lot weaker defenders and a lot weaker goalies compared to the more evenly spread out Liga MX teams. And I think
Hmm.
I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like MLS is currently in a spot where if you take Liga MX, you have the weak teams at the bottom, where aside for Austin FC getting humiliated, right? I think MLS, for the most part, the 29 MLS teams can go toe to toe with or beat the bottom five Liga MX teams consistently. Then
Yeah.
the middle five Liga MX teams are probably at the level of Liga MX teams. And then the top five, six, seven, whatever is left, Liga MX teams, the big dogs that have the unlimited finances. There's no salary cap they can spend on whoever, whenever, whatever, right? Um, they're just on a level above. And those are the teams that we
Yeah.
usually see
Yeah.
still winning Conca champions consistently, right? Maybe the only
Hmm.
team that could play against them right now is maybe LAFC. That's kind of consistent in terms of defense, midfield, forwards.
Yeah.
But even that's pushing it. We're talking, of course, about America. Chivas, though they lost to Cincinnati, I think they'll bounce back. Tigres, Rayados, all the big dogs that will constantly beat MLS teams. If they were to play 10 times, will beat them 8 out of 10 times, I'd say. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that's where MLS has been exposed, kind of shown that yeah, they've cut the gap. They're better than five or six bottom Liga MX teams, kind of would be in the middle of them of Liga MX, but there's still that gap between the big dogs in Liga MX and the rest of
Yeah.
MLS. Um, and
Hmm.
that's not to say Liga MX teams are barely coming off their summer break, right? You would think MLS teams are fitter at this point,
Yeah. I mean, La Liga MX only played, I think, 3
right?
weeks, if I'm not mistaken, before they came to a halt. And then also, not all the teams are done doing signings. For example, Monterrey just signed Sergio Canales a couple of weeks ago, so they're waiting for Sergio Canales to show up and play with them. He was, I guess, the coach El Tan Ortiz thought he was going to count with Sergio Canales for the game against Seattle Sounders, but he didn't. But it isn't like they needed him, right? I mean, they destroyed Seattle Sounders 4-2 yesterday. But yeah, to illustrate your point, I think when, for example, if you look uh, at the match between America and San Luis, I think St. Louis is a very well rounded team with a lot of evenly spread out talent throughout their lines. I think it isn't like necessarily skewed to just very good or talented attackers. I think they have a good backbone where Roman Burki is their keeper, and they have like at least a strong player on each line that has Bundesliga experience. But I wasn't expecting America to destroy them the way they did, but also St. Louis didn't play with all of their starters. So I'm just it's kind of difficult to, for me at least, to put a comparison on, especially like with a team with like St. Louis that is just the one of the newest franchises, right? They don't have that much history. It's kind of hard to gauge how well or how much of an impact they had on MLS. But when you compare it against the likes of the OG MLS teams, when you look at Houston Dynamo, when you look at DC United, when you look at Portland Timbers, Seattle Sounders, Los Angeles Galaxy, you would expect all those teams to be at least close to the level of the giants of Liga MX. And to your point, they seem to be very far away.
They like
I just think
stagnate,
that
right?
for the
They're in the same place they
exactly
were at 10 years ago.
yes, and the thing is that I know that Seattle Sounders won one of the last two concacafas, but they play against Pumas, and Pumas for the last 10 years they haven't been a good team in Liga MX. So I think it was just a fluke where it so happens that one of the weakest teams in, or at least not one of the strong ones in Liga MX, showed up to that final.
Yeah, for sure. And, of course, PPG curse. We're going to look like liars here, but Columbus is beating America 3-1.
I know, right?
We're not saying that these MLS teams can't beat the big dogs. We're just saying that if they were to play
Mm-hmm.
10 times, the big dog of Liga MX would beat America
Yeah.
would beat Columbus 8 out of 10 times.
And also, America didn't play pretty. I mean, they have like a mix of starting players and
Yeah,
bench players.
yeah, because
So
they
not an
already
excuse.
qualified for the next
Yeah.
round. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, man. I mean, definitely. I think MLS has ways to go to catch up. We in our preview episode, not preview, in our episode comparing Saudi League, MLS Liga MX, we talked about the salary cap and how it was discussed that there might be changes coming to that for MLS. Not
Hmm.
necessarily getting rid of it entirely, but maybe making a rule where you could spend. They double the amount of money you can spend, right? I think that'll definitely help the
Hmm.
MLS teams compete with the rich giants in Liga MX that
Yeah.
are able to spend loads of money consistently.
Hmm.
Sorry, go for it.
So, and I mean, I guess the one last thing that I do want to mention and that I noticed again on those two matches that I saw, um, even though we keep on saying that the small teams like Mazatlan and Bravos, they might take this seriously because of the cash prize. Um, the one thing that I also noticed is there, even at that level, even at the looking at the small teams in Liga MX, there's still a significant gap in terms of technique in players. I feel that the majority of MLS players, yes, they're talented. I'm not gonna say they're bad players, but I think the difference between Austin FC and Mazatlan and Bravos is that even though Bravos they don't, I guess, I mean they probably are, they don't make as much money as Austin FC maybe, and this is just me just pulling stats out of my ass. Um, but I think the fact that Bravos has three or four players that are technically gifted allow them to breach that gap between the, I guess, the infrastructure that Austin MC has compared to what Bravos and Mazatlan had. And I think that was a key uh, aspect of these matches where those highly technical players that these teams had made the difference when it was important, right? When they realized that Austin FC was depleted in terms of energy, that we're not running anymore, that the
Yeah,
midfield broke,
yeah,
they just, it was like an instant shift where, okay, we got this, and then those three talented players just linked up and scored. So that's also that, of course, I'm not talking about Messi because there's no, I mean, he's perhaps arguably the best player in history, right? And
right.
technique wise. And I'm not saying that Carlos Vela is not good, technically gifted, or Chiellini, all these guys that are big names in MLS. What I'm saying is, I don't
Average
think
MLS player.
yeah, exactly. Like exactly. The common denominator in MLS is they don't really have that good balance of technically gifted players. They have athletes, they have strong players, but they lack that specific aspect of having, a good mix of these guys can, touch the ball with finesse. They can they're not also able, I mean, they're able to score screamers, but they also have that, that nice touch,
The street
the
knowledge, the
vision.
street ball. The
Exactly.
stuff you only learn that
Exactly.
playing on the streets, playing with, watching it nonstop, and yeah, I know what you're trying to say. Um,
Hmm.
MLS, Liga MX European teams are all technically more gifted than your average MLS player, who is probably technically more conditioned and more physically gifted,
Yes,
right, than your average
I
European
agree.
or
Hmm.
Liga MX player. Which is why when they get tired around the 70th minute is when they get exposed, because
Hmm.
these Liga MX teams are probably more technically gifted. Yeah, man. If results hold here with Columbus, which is going to hold where I'm watching it now, it's 92nd minute,
Yeah.
and Puebla, Chicago are going to hold at a tie. Um, we started the day this morning, July 31st, Monday, with Liga MX teams having won 14 matches against MLS opposition and MLS sides having won 12 against Liga MX opposition. This will change after this. It's going to be Liga MX 14, MLS 13 after this victory by Columbus. And there's still going to be 2 games left, Toluca, Colorado, and Guadalajara and Sporting KC here to round out the group matches. So um, the MLS needs to win both of those to win the overall against Liga MX. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's not a trophy or anything for that. Just kind of fun to keep track of. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Um, so yeah, the round of 32 is starting to take shape, and we'll definitely be watching and keeping updates. As the League's Cup rolls through. Well, a tournament that we kind of laughed at before, and it's kind of been fun to watch. So.
Yeah, it's been entertaining, dude. I think we've seen a bunch of goals. We've seen screamers. I think the one thing that we're lacking is like decent saves. But overall, I would say, I know that a lot of fans were against it, but it seems to be, making some buzz.
Yeah, other than that, Bravos versus Mazapan match in Austin that drew 200 people.
Dude, yeah,
Uh,
man, that
poor guy.
sucks. Dude. I mean, I know. I was reading somewhere like I think they registered 200 people that showed up to the match.
Yeah, I mean, they probably lost all the money they've gained from keeping the lights on for that match. Um,
I know.
but no, man, it's been fun, and we'll keep track of the League's Cup. Adriana, as we wrap up here, dude, where can our listeners find us?
For sure. They can always find us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast on. Last but not least, you can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Puro Pinche Gol. We post stuff every now and then.
Yeah, make sure to follow us and let us know in the comments below. Definitely, we like interacting with you guys. How have you guys thought the League's Cup has performed? How has your team performed? Is your team still in it? Is your team out? Like Adrian and his Austin FC. And who do you think is going to go the furthest in this? And do you think Intermiami is going to go all the way? They do have the easier side of the bracket for sure. Adrian, we might actually get a Monterrey Tigres round of 16 match.
Yeah,
So
that'll be
that'd
nice.
be interesting. I think they already
Hmm.
announced where it would be. It's somewhere up north, I think. But we'll definitely keep on the lookout. And yeah, be sure to let us know in the comments any of y'all's thoughts on Leagues Cup. Adrian, man, it's been another fun one, bro. I'll see you in the next one, dude.
Take it easy, my friend.
See you, bro. See ya.
See ya.